our Redeemer, Jesus, God's own Son, precious Lamb of God, Messiah, Holy One.
You get high in numbers. Anytime you get any fish population high in numbers, they're going to be low in food, and that's going to affect their immune system. They're going to become more susceptible to disease. I've seen that with bass heavy ponds a lot of times.
Now explain bass heavy. What are we talking bass heavy?
Bass heavy is just a term that we use that it describes the population. It just means there's a few too many bass in it.
Okay.
And you can tell by their weights, the length versus their weight. We use a measurement called relative weight to compare basically that fish that we sampled to the average. And if your fish are below average, that's a real good indication that you have too many of them.
Which is the relative weight. That's the average.
Weight. Yeah, the relative weight is just the average for bass in North America. And if you looked at the chart right now, like 24-inch fish is 8.1 pounds. 12.5-inch fish is exactly 1 pound. I just have those numbers committed to memory.
Right.
But if, say, you're on your pond or your lake or whatever, and you're catching 12.5-inch bass that weigh 3/4 of a pound consistently, there's a sign that you have too many 12.5-inch bass, and you need to start keeping some of those. I would start keeping those until their weights improve to average
now
or better.
You realize you just threw out a faux pas or whatever they call it, and all these guys at bass fish are like, whoa, wait a second.
Yeah.
We don't keep bass around here in Georgia.
I know.
Okay.
And that was the biggest problem I've ever had managing fisheries, was actually getting people. They would pay me thousands of dollars to go assess their fishery. I'd tell them keep bass, and they wouldn't do it. And then they'd come back the next year and say, how many fish did you keep? None. Well, you're not going to have any improvement in the growth then.
And so what you're saying is if you're on a lake and you're seeing by this relative weight, a lot of these, your recommendation is this, let's get some out.
Yeah, we'll put a slot limit on them. And it's so like consistent. Like I've seen it so many times over and over again. Your slot limit's going to be between usually 12 and 14 inches long. That's the problem area. Those are the fish that you're going to want to harvest. They'll get to 12 inches in a year, and then they'll stay there for 5. And you don't want that. We want those fish to grow. We want those fish to go 12, 13, 14, all and up to 20 and reach their potential. And if they're getting stuck, even for a brief period of time, even for a year, well, they just lost a whole year. They just lost a fifth of their life, sixth of their life.
That's what I was going to say. And what's the lifespan of a bass?
7 years or so. I mean, you can get them to 10, but, I'd say the average is probably about 7 years. So if you have a fish that, even gets stunted, like I've seen fish 7 years old that are 12 inches long, they stop growing.